What's going on, lacrosse fans? Welcome to the PLL Flash on the Lacrosse Flash Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Hulsebos, joined by Flash Editor-in-Chief Austin Owens and lacrosse insider Dan Arestia as we get set to dive into the 5 games from Week 5 of the PLL. From Minneapolis, Minnesota, as the Waterdogs come away with 2 wins and a flipped score differential. The Redwoods retake first place after briefly holding it back in Week 1. The Atlas stay hot, and the Cannons keep their playoff hopes alive behind 9 Lyle Thompson points on Sunday with just 2 games left to play. All of that and more coming your way. But first, Austin, Dan, another exciting weekend of lacrosse in the books. Just 2 more ahead of the playoffs after this 2-week All-Star break that we're going to have. But before we get into it, how was the weekend, and what is your biggest takeaway heading into this break? Austin, if you want to go first.
I was going to concede to Dan, but I'm realizing now after we hit record that I didn't wear a floral shirt of any kind, so I'm a little rattled at this moment. So should we start over? Like, I feel like we'll just roll with it. Whatever. I'm doing good, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing good, my man. Dan.
I'm good, guys. I had a nice weekend. The games I think were good. You know, there were some games that even though they weren't close, the Waterdogs were blowing people out.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think the lacrosse was exciting in the sense that the standings on Monday look nothing like they did a week ago. Teams are up, down. You know, the Waterdogs are in second. If they had scored 1 more goal or 2 more goals, they would be in first right now, having gone from 7th place to, you know, the top of the league in the course of 1 weekend. You know, everybody's just so bunched up that it really is like super fun to watch because it's every game drastically impacts not just the teams in it, but where everybody else is right now. So
every game. Every goal at this point really matters with how the scoring differential will work. So getting exciting here as we get towards the end of the season.
Yeah. You know, and Lyle said it in his postgame after that Cannons game last night that the Cannons consider themselves to be in the playoffs right now. Like they're playing like the playoffs have started, and that's what they, I mean, honestly need to do because they are, you know, still at the bottom of the league right now. But they get that huge win. Lyle has a virtuoso Lyle performance, and you know, they've got a schedule left with some winnable games on it. They're at the same number of wins as the Chrome and the Chaos. You know, their goal differential is the same as the Chaos is. So, you know, they're hanging right in there. The who's not going to make the playoffs and lock up that first overall seed or first overall draft pick, I should say, is anyone's guess right now because everybody looks good enough to make it, and you know, somebody's just going to be left out in the cold.
Yep. We're definitely we're gonna go over some of the remaining schedules here as we move through this thing. But like I was saying before, another interesting weekend of lacrosse. Looking forward to talking about it. And Dan's full takeaways are available on the Flash site, lacrosseflash.com. So make sure to check that out. But let's start with the Waterdogs because going into the weekend, I don't think any of us could have guessed that we would have seen a performance like we saw from the Dogs. They go into the weekend, as Dan was saying before, in 7th place. Their goal differential sitting at -11, worst in the league at that point. We're thinking that blowout loss to the Archers last week could really come back to hurt them if it ends up coming down to scoring for seeding or for that 7th spot. But 2 huge wins and a +18 goal differential later, the Waterdogs are back in the driver's seat with 2 games left to play. As Dan said before, they go into the break at 4-3 with a +7 goal differential. A very impressive weekend out of Coach Copeland's team. He's got to be really happy about how they performed over these doubleheaders. And Austin, it was the defense that really impressed me the most as this unit holds Lyle Thompson and Paul Rabel without a point on Friday night. They silenced the Chrome on Sunday, holding them to just 6 goals. And then this is after they allow 17 in Week 3 to the Archers and then 19 in last week's shootout with the Redwoods. So the defense stepping up, the offense padded the scoreboard, 31 goals scored in total this weekend over the 2 games. And also we're seeing Dylan Ward look like the Dylan Ward that we were expecting when he was traded to the Waterdogs. As a week after getting pulled at the half, he allows 13 goals over 2 games, saves above 60% of the shots he faced in both contests, and then helping his team to these 2 huge wins.
Yeah, everything sort of just went right in that game for the Waterdogs. And, you know, Coach Quirk talked about it in his postgame. It's sort of like they jumped on the Cannons from the outset, and they didn't really respond. They didn't have, you know, a counter shot. They lifted Nick Morocco. They got Jacob Stover in. That didn't help. Jacob Stover went 0 for 5, gave up 5 goals. Just a rough night overall for the Cannons. When Paul Rabel and Lyle Thompson combined for 0 points and 4 turnovers, you're going to have a bad time. I think that just goes without saying. So, you know, Yeah, everything was fantastic for the Waterdogs. I think Dylan Ward was exactly what we think he's going to be, which is arguably the best goalie on the planet when he's on his game, and he was that this weekend. Everyone stepped up for them. It was fantastic. The midfield was great. Ben Reeves was putting in points. The defense was fantastic. I mean, that was one of the things that was sort of like Dylan Ward is one thing. He's having his struggles, but it was also the defense when the other teams could take shots on Dylan Ward. They were generally high danger chances. They weren't, really keeping everybody to the outside and making life easy on Dylan Ward. So, Ben Randall, Liam Burns, Eli Gobrecht, Rylan Reese, that whole crew. I think it was Witcher on short stick, and Zach Courier. Obviously, he's another story I'll get into in a sec. That whole unit was fantastic, and they did a hell of a job. So, you know what? I think the Waterdogs kind of wish that they played doubleheader weekends all season because they're 4-0 in both doubleheader weekends. So that every single one of their wins have come on a doubleheader weekend this season, which is wild to think about. But yeah, Zach Courier. We got to come up with a nickname for him of some kind. The human triple double seems like a good one.
Yeah.
See if it sticks. He's a maniac. He's an absolute psychopath. That guy. His offense, defense. I don't know what I can really say about him. He's fantastic. He's unbelievable. He could take faceoffs if he needed to as well. It's kind of the scary thing. We talked about Ryan Tarapenko and how versatile he is. Zach Courier can do it as well. He was a faceoff guy for a little bit, and he can't take draws. So he's a Swiss Army knife, and you're seeing now, he's a little nicked up last year, and that's why he didn't really have a great showing in the championship series. But this season, you're seeing why he went first overall in last year's entry draft because he's an absolute psychopath.
You brought it up. I said it as well after week 2 in Atlanta when the Waterdogs won their first back-to-back doubleheader weekend. And I'll say it again, I don't think the Waterdogs, as you said before, they don't want to see this break, especially this extended break that we're going to have here over the next 2 weeks with the All-Star Game and Skills Challenge in San Jose next weekend and then a weekend off before week 7 in Colorado Springs. But we saw Ryan Brown light up the stat sheet with 4 goals on Friday night. He had a goal and an assist on Sunday. Kieran McCardle recorded a hat trick along with an assist against the Cannons and then added 2 goals on Sunday against the Chrome. Zach Courier, as you said before, and Ben Reeves each had 2 goals and an assist on Friday night. And then Jake Withers up against Kevin Reisman in his Cannons PLL debut, absolutely dominated. He scored a goal on Friday night and another one on Sunday afternoon. So all the right pieces for success coming together for the Waterdogs this weekend, and the Waterdogs able to steal 2 up north. And Dan, just like that, they move on up the standings. The league actually, as you said before, has them at number 2 because of that score differential. I'd rank them at number 4, just given obviously that they are a half game behind the Redwoods, Atlas, and Whipsnakes. But what stood out to you the most and what was a statement win, huge win for the Waterdogs, both of them I should say, as after the break, they'll face the Whipsnakes in week 7 and then the Atlas in week 8.
Yeah, I was kind of tweeting about it during some of their games, but their face-off unit is such a bunch of bullies. Like, Withers is out there and he just harasses people. Like clamp, no clamp, I honestly don't think he cares. He's just out there to lift hands, to come down as you try and pick the ball up. He's just going to make your life miserable. And then it only gets worse because Zach Courier and Rylan Reese are sprinting at you while he's doing that, trying to pick the ball up. It's a nightmare trying to win a faceoff against this team. All they want to do is make a fight out of it, and they're successful so often. And that's just what happens when Withers doesn't just cleanly win the clamp anyway. So, that group is as mean and as field tilting as there is in the league. It really is. I think they're a real key to their success. And then we talked, about Dylan Ward going over, forget going over 60%, which he did in both games, but finally over 50% for some games. He was, down in the 40s in all the games leading up to this. I'm sure Coach Copeland, Coach Bachlet are thinking, all right, this is the guy we traded for. This is what we thought we were getting here. He's, dropping low to make saves on point-blank shots and stuffing people. And, he's good with the ball on a stick, throwing crisp outlets, making the tough saves look easy. That's what you expect out of him. And then, we touched a little bit about their defense. I think Liam Burns is having an incredible season. That's, you hear his name on a broadcast like maybe once a weekend. You should hear it more. He's near the top of the league. If he's not at the top of the league, I think, in caused turnovers, he's up there. At worst, I think he's in the top 3. And then, Rylan Reese is hitting 2s, and of course he's a threat. You saw him pick up what looked like a little injury in the Friday game, but I think he played the whole game Sunday. So, we'll see if he pops up on the injury report this week. But that defensive group especially when Ben Randall is in it as well with Gobrecht and Burns and Reese, is really, really good, really, really strong. So we'll see if Witcher stays in the lineup for them. I think he's a guy where when they added him, I kind of was of the opinion I wasn't sure he'd be able to be a consistent week-to-week player for them, but he looked okay in his game action over the weekend. So we'll see if he stays there. But I think you kind of said what the big thing here is that the Waterdogs went plus 18 on the weekend in scoring differential, and that's how you get yourself shot up the table. Whether they're in second, whether they're in fourth, however they decide to do it, it looks like scoring differential is going to be what carries the day here, even though it wasn't a couple weeks ago. But it is now. So I think the Waterdogs are a team that can contend maybe for that top overall spot. We can get into that a little more. I think there might be another team that has a little better schedule than they do if they're pursuing it. But if the Waterdogs keep this level where it's at going forward, they're going to be tough. Now, keeping it there, like we said, is hard because this break, if you're not an all-star, and even worse, if you're a guy that the Waterdogs didn't dress this weekend, you're looking at like more than a month of time between your game action, right? You're not going to play this weekend. You're not going to play next weekend. And if you didn't play in the weekend that just ended, then the last time you played when they get to Colorado is going to be like a month ago. So, that's something that every team's got to deal with. But for that group of roster guys, those kind of fringe guys who can be kind of role players that they rely on to fill in spots, you're going to need those guys to hopefully stay in shape on their own, away from the team over the All-Star break, and as we get forward into the Colorado weekend.
Florida is looking like they are right back on track as for the second and final time this season. They sweep a doubleheader weekend. They're the only team to be able to say that they did that to this point. We'll wait the Redwoods Week 8 doubleheader to see if they can complete it, as well as they're the only other team to sweep a weekend as they did it back in Week 1 in Boston. And that actually segues us perfectly into talking about the Redwoods. We'll come back to the Cannons because they pulled off a thriller in the Sunday game, but the Redwoods, coming off their first win since that Week 1 sweep, come out of Week 5 with another win, over the two-time defending champs, the Whipsnakes. And obviously the storyline of this game was centered around those two championships, as the Whips had to go through the Redwoods to clinch both, the first in the championship game in 2019, the second in last summer's championship series in the semifinals, with both of those games going into overtime. This one wasn't as tightly contested, as a 5-goal second quarter saw the Redwoods up 8-4 at the half. Kyle Bernlor was replaced by Brian Phipps to start half number 2, and the Redwoods defense managed to hold the Whipsnakes to just 3 goals in that second half. So an impressive outing for Coach St. Laurent and co., especially the defense. I heard something about Infinity Beers, Dan, for holding the Whips below 8 goals. I'd imagine Infinity Beers were drank or drunk, whichever the pronunciation is, but like the Waterdogs, the
Athletic Brew, Brian, Athletic Brew.
Athletic Brew, absolutely. Athletic Brew, Infinity Athletic Brew. But like the Waterdogs, the Redwoods are putting themselves in a really good spot heading into this break, as on the other side of it, Dan, they'll have the Archers in Colorado and then the Whipsnakes in Chaos to close out the regular season in Albany.
Yeah, the Woods, they hit this little rough patch like a couple weeks ago where, I had said maybe they looked like they had too many cooks in the kitchen. Like there was too often on offense where it looked like whether it was Pinnell or Jules or somebody would be dodging and other guys would be kind of watching and hoping something happens. And then, of course, as soon as they tweet that, they hang 19 and they look like a dope. But, they've looked much better. I think something that's really been great has been Miles turning into a distributor at times. You've seen him throw a couple look-away feeds, things like that, where there really hasn't been part of what you expect to see when Miles takes the field. You're used to the 2-point threat, the really downhill physical dodging, the overpowering, physicality of it. But the finesse of some of the passes he's starting to make is really a new facet to his game that I think has been really important for the Woods. And their defense is always going to be solid as long as they're sending out Glazner and Epple and guys like Sexton. It's such a stout group, and they held the Whipsnakes, like we said. They earned themselves Infinity Beers, even though the Whipsnakes, are without Rambo and without some other pieces in that game. You still got to go out there and beat a really damn good team to do it. And the Woods did that in a statement fashion, I would say, with that win. So, I think they'll be, their remaining schedule's tough. Can they sweep it, which they might have to do to get the top spot? I don't know. That's a tall order, but they're in a really good spot right now. They've got a ton of guys in the All-Star game, so they won't get the advantage of a week of rest right now like some other teams might, because so many of their guys are playing. But they're also sending out, again, we talked about the Waterdogs face-off unit being exceptionally good. The Woods is right there with them, and that TD is going to probably win a whole lot more clamps just to himself than a Withers will. But the wing play that the Woods get is also awesome. It's really, really, really good. It's not the same sort of style at times like you would see with the Waterdogs. The Waterdogs seem actually like a really strong counter to what the Woods, I should say, do. And that the Woods are trying out there to cleanly win a clamp, cleanly win it out to a wing player, or a TD win it to himself. And the Waterdogs are built to prevent that from happening. So if we get another game between those two, I love watching that happen. But the Woods can dominate possession when they need to. They can get stops when they need to. They have all these championship pieces. The face-off being the last thing they were missing. So if they can stay at this level that they're at now, where they're much more fluid on offense, they're able to get guys in dangerous spots. If they can get Ryan Lee back healthy and he can get back in the lineup, they're absolutely a contender right now.
The Redwoods will look to keep it rolling coming out of the All-Star break. As I said before, they'll have the Archers in Week 7 and then the Whipsnakes and Chaos to wrap up the regular season. It looks like they'll only probably need to win one of those games to clinch a playoff spot. As we were saying before, that top seed is a completely different story, but something to keep an eye on as we head through the bye weeks in the weekends to come. But we talked about the Redwoods. Let's talk about the Whipsnakes as they take their second loss of the season, playing without a couple key pieces that Dan mentioned before on both the offensive and defensive end, whether it's Matt Rambo, who's missed the past 2 weeks with what we believe to be a wrist injury of some sort. Connor Kurse has also missed the past 2 weeks. Michael Earhart was a scratch this past weekend as well. And then another poor performance by Kyle Bernlohr in cage, as just a week after making only 4 saves against the Archers, he makes 6 in the first half. He's pulled at halftime and replaced by Brian Phipps, who was recently added by Coach Stagnita off the Redwoods reserve roster. So the Whips got some evident holes on the back end. The offense also did not play up to par, as Zed Williams was held to just an assist. The unit totaled just 7 goals. But Austin, no need to panic. Those guys that the Whips are without should get healthy, and we'll hopefully see them in 2 weeks. But we talked about the end of the regular season gauntlet there for the Waterdogs and Redwoods. The Whipsnakes might even have a tougher one, as they'll take on the Waterdogs in Colorado, and then in Week 8, a doubleheader with the Redwoods, followed by the Archers to wrap up the regular season. And no game by any means comes easy in this league, Austin, but to close out the season with 3 of the top teams, it would definitely be nice to get those veterans back.
Yeah, I will clear something up really quick. That was not a shot at Athletic Brew, because I feel like somebody's going to get offended. I'm just trying to make sure some gentlemen don't get in trouble for their post-game pops. Let's put it that way. The Whipsnakes, man, a couple weeks ago I covered what was the first team they lost to? Chrome. I was watching their game, and Matt Dunn had talked about after that game that nobody's invincible. Essentially, is what he said. Like they'd kind of forgotten about that long winning streak they had, because they don't think they're playing their perfect game either. Like they're making mistakes. They aren't as crisp as they expect to be. So the Whips weren't focused on, which is a good thing, obviously, weren't focused on this long winning streak. So it made it a little less of a blow that it ended with the Chrome, and now, that second loss to the Redwoods after they beat the Archers, a little bit interesting. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. A little bit of injury trouble. Rambo should be a fun one to see if he comes back okay. I don't know. It looked like maybe a wrist problem that he dealt with. He was trying to, battle through. Matt Rambo's one of the toughest guys in the league, so to have him sit out, you knew it was something that's pretty bad. Zeddy as well, very tough kid. So, man, like you said, I wouldn't stress at all about this team. There's nothing to stress about, because it's next man up. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like with the Canadian border opening up, like Brian Cole could just show up on a roster at any point at this day, and then the Whips are laughing again because they're using Brad Smith and Brian Cole up top. So it is what it is. You go through it during the regular season. There's some speed bumps. I mean, to go 6-0 like they did throughout the championship series last year is something in itself. I don't think we could expect them to run the table again over maybe 10, 11 games, however many they had to play this season, including the playoffs, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. The face-offs are there. Nardello's a monster. The defense is still there. Statistically, as Joe Keegan's pointed out, one of if not the best of all time. Kyle Bernlohr has just had a really weird stretch here, and it's very uncharacteristic of what Kyle Bernlohr has been over the last couple of years. 4 saves against the Archers, and they still won. And we talked about it last week, Ryan, is asinine. Like, that's more on the Archers for not capitalizing than it is on, Bernlohr or the Whip Snakes for, putting up a good defensive effort. But they shouldn't have won that game. Let's be honest. 4 saves, you should not win you a game. So yeah, that schedule, to sum up a stupidly long answer and a long soliloquy about absolutely nothing like I usually do. Let's tie it up in a nice bow. That schedule is crap to end the season for the Whip Snakes. Especially that back-to-back is going to be atrocious. The Redwoods is the first game, right? The Redwoods is the doubleheader, I mean. It's the Waterdogs, then the Redwoods, then the Archers.
It is the Waterdogs in week 7, and then, yes, the Redwoods Friday night, Archers on Sunday.
So, first of all, the Waterdogs, I mean, Dan talked about it already. When I was doing my piece on the last Waterdogs game, I think they had won. It was Friday. Jake Withers only has won, coming into this week, 11% of his clamps. And I think Joe had said that nobody else in the league had gotten under about 47, 48% of clamps. At one point, Jake Withers, I'm going to go on a long little thing about the Waterdogs here because I love me some Jake Withers. Jake Withers does what I described as the House League box face-off thing where both guys just sort of push the ball, like they sweep it like this to one side and then go chase it towards the boards. Jake Withers did that to open the game, I think, last weekend. Just swiped at it, didn't even clamp it, and it got it out onto the wing. But they turn it into a war. They beat the crap out of you. Like, that's not going to be a fun matchup, win or lose, and they're going to get some bruises. Redwoods, the same thing. They're going to beat the crap out of you, and they have one of the most, if not the most elite offense in the league. It sort of flip-flops with the Archers, I'd say, on a given week, and the Whip Snakes, depending on when Rambo's back. And then the Archers are, they're going to be ready to go because they don't want to lose to the Whips twice, especially since they've lost 3 straight. It'll be a little bit of a different story in a couple weeks because they might bounce back in week 7. We don't really know. But yeah, that schedule is about as bad as it gets to end the season. Anyone can beat anyone. I think that's what we like about the parity, and that's what Dan talked about last week in his takeaways was anyone can win in any game. And that's what we kind of love this season about it. Our pick'em's been an absolute disaster. Like, even my personal picks on the site, just shambles. But it's fun to watch. It's fun lacrosse. I talked about it, I think it was with you, Ryan, about the Whip Snakes not really being as fun to watch anymore because they just win. Now they've shown that they're a bit beatable, which is nice. Anyone can beat anyone, and I love it. So, can the Whip Snakes go 3-0? Yes. Can the Whip Snakes go 0-3 in this stretch? Absolutely. I'm very excited to see what happens.
3 of the top teams in the league.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say with the Whips, I know we talked about how, they don't have Rambo and they don't have Earhart, and Zed was banged up. The guys we didn't mention that are really important for them to have is Matt Abbott didn't dress, and Matt Abbott hasn't missed a game yet this year. They picked up Nick Manis and then didn't dress him. And they went with Chris Hogan at defensive midfield and played him pretty much with Bernhardt. But again, like I'm not one of like the just out here to pile on Chris Hogan guys. But in that Woods game, by my count, the 4 goals on Hogan pretty much. Like, and so you find out what you got because you traded for the guy and you brought him in to see if he can help you at defensive midfield. Give Abbott some time off if he's carrying an injury, then give him some time off to get this week and then the All-Star game and then another week. Great chance to get guys healthy. Absolutely. But the gap in that defensive midfield, going from having Earhart and Abbott and Bernhardt to a backup and a Bernhardt and Hogan is a precipitous drop, to say the least. And as good as their close defense is, and Bernlohr is going to be fine. Like we're still talking about a goalie of the year caliber player here in Kyle Bernlohr. He'll be fine. As good as that close defense is, when your unit at the midfield drops off as much as it did, and the other midfield is Bertrand and Jones and Henningberg and Perkovic, that's gonna hurt you. That's going to be a tough thing to make up for if you just don't have your guys when the Woods midfield comes to town. So, for me, it's a grain of salt with that Whips loss to the Woods. I still think the Whips are awesome when they have their A squad on the field, and I don't think their A squad was on the field against the Woods.
Yeah, they had Simon Matthias suited up there. I think he was starting at attack for a while. He did score 2 goals, but you look at that defense, they moved some stuff around. I believe this was Nick Grill's first game in the PLO, rookie Nick Grill out of Maryland. He was starting at close defense. I believe they had Bryce Young up at LSM to fill Earhart's shoes. So the Whipsnakes, as we're saying, we're hopefully going to see them bounce back here. But like the Waterdogs and Redwoods, a win should put the Whips comfortably in the playoffs. But Dan, what do they need to do and figure out over these 2 weeks off that make it a little more convincing that this is kind of the team to beat come playoff time? Because from what we've seen pretty much all season, I wouldn't say that that's fully the case, despite obviously being the 2-time defending champs.
I think they really just need to get healthy. You need Earhart to get over the upper body injury that he's listed as having. And again, he didn't play this week. I don't know if we'll see if he's on an all-star roster. So we'll see if he winds up, playing, or if they go with an alternate in his spot instead, depending on how that injury goes. But you want to get Rambo back. He's missing the all-star game. They made that call really quickly, which is not something you love to see. When he picked up that injury, it was with Mike Manley guarding him, and Manley will be physical with guys and come down on hands. This isn't like Manley's a dirty player. He's an awesome defenseman who plays physical lacrosse, and sometimes guys get hurt. Like, that's just the nature of the game. But I think Rambo looked like he was really trying to get through a wrist injury. And if it's a wrist injury, and I think it was to his left hand, like that's pretty much a nightmare scenario for Rambo. So you're hoping that there isn't like a break or something there, and he's going to be able to get back sometime soon. But they need him healthy. They need Zed to, if he gets back to 100%, he's been great, but if he's on the injury report still, you worry that he's still a little nicked up. And once those guys get back, I feel like they'll just kind of get their mojo back. They'll have that feeling of like, all right, we're whole, we're the Whipsnakes, we're a 2-time defending champ. We've lost like 5 games in the history of the PLL or whatever it is for them. So they'll be just fine. I think they just need to get some of their guys that are missing back in the lineup. I wouldn't be trying to like tinker with my offense or schematically move things around, try and shuffle guys. I don't think they need to do that. I think that's not something Staggs would consider either. I think he trusts his guys when his guys are in the spots to get the job done.
We will wait and see if the Whipsnakes will be back to full strength on the other side of the bye. We should also have an injury report at some point this week, along with some transactions ahead of Week 7. So definitely make sure to keep an eye out for that. We'll recap everything that comes out this week come Friday on GLE. But let's move on to that second game from Saturday night between the Atlas and the Chaos, as the Atlas, aside from Week 1, have arguably been playing the best lacrosse in the league. And Jeff Teat, again, was phenomenal. 4 goals and 4 assists for the number 1 overall pick. And in relief of Jack Concannon, JD Colarusso gets his first win in his PLO debut. 10 saves, good for 53%. And now Austin, tied for the top spot in the league, is the 2021 retooled Atlas, something that I can say that I did not expect coming into this season.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody outside of, I won't say anybody because that's a little bit disrespectful to the Atlas, but there weren't a lot of people that were counting on the Atlas to be in this position at the All-Star break. Maybe, where the Cannons, not the Cannons, sorry, that's last in the league. I won't put that much disrespect on them. Maybe like where the Chaos are, like that 7, 6, 5 spot, like that would have been sort of my expectation around this time, like sort of around 500 for them. They have been fantastic. They have looked, even before Jeff Teat showed up, they have been fantastic. And this game, they were fantastic again. Even with, you said it, Jack and Cannon wasn't in there. JD Colarusso came in and played a great game. And Chaos had the first 3 goals of the game in there. They looked like they were doing really well. They were rolling, and then, Jeff T just shows up and says, nope, that's the end of that. And, that's all she wrote pretty much. That was, I believe it was a 9-goal run Atlas went on from the first to the third quarter. They were dominant through stretches. Obviously Chaos pulled it back. They had a CJ Costa build 2. Couple of markers from Chaos that really kept it close, but Jeff Teat's an absolute monster, man. Like, I kind of feel bad. I wrote a thing and during the beginning of the season being like, I think that Atlas should take Michael Sowers.
I was in the same boat. I will put it out there. I was in the same boat. I was saying I was thinking I think you're nuts if you don't take Sowers first overall. That was just my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously now throw my opinion out the window.
Well, your opinion is fine. My opinion is grounds for treason, being where I'm from, considering I live 45 minutes away from his hometown. I respect Jeff T. At the time, I believe it was more of Ben Rubio didn't take a lot of Canadians on his roster. It was pretty much Joel Tinney and there's Chris Cloutier. And I feel like he was going to skew towards an American towards-on nominee than a guy that was very good, a generational player, but had sat out for a year at Cornell. Anyway, I have to take my lumps on that one. It is what it is. We all take L's. I love Jeff T. He is fantastic. He's just – I haven't gotten to see him play field, truth be told, other than his highlights in Cornell. I've never gotten to see him play a live field lacrosse game other than for Canada, and he was fantastic with Canada, so I don't know why I thought he wouldn't be fantastic with the Atlas. But it's kind of funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was the same thing when he went towards major senior during the Canadian Box Series. He had a bad first game when he played for the Brampton Excelsiors after he had about 150 points probably in his last junior season. Jumped up, had like an iffy first game, I believe, and everybody was kind of like, oh, that's weird. That's not Jeff T sort of thing. And then he led the MSL in points with like 80 in a season as a rookie. So that's sort of what we're seeing now is Jeff T had that weird first game, and everyone was like, why did Ben Rubio take this guy? He's a big phony, everyone. I'm speaking for people, obviously, but he comes out and he just dominates. He's tops in the league in points, or he's up there in points, I should say, and he's up there in goals as well. And he does it all.
Games than probably the guys that he's up there with.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think Lyle Thompson needed a 9-point game just to pass him by 1 point, and he's played 6. Jeff played 4. So, yeah, he's something, man. His IQ is unbelievable. It's what we talked about leading up to the draft. Is just passing his IQ, his playmaking is unbelievable. The cool thing in this Atlas offense is he doesn't necessarily need to be the attacker. He doesn't need to be that main guy, your trigger man like a Lyle, where the ball needs to go through you to create offense. They play him off the wing a lot, which I kind of like a lot. And he works well with Caraway. He works well with Eric Law. He works well with Brian Costabile, Mark Dennis. Just insert guy here. Dox Aiken's even been out there for a little bit in this offense. Like, this team's just fun to watch, man. And we all kind of poke fun at him because he's not really the PLL guy in a media sense. He's very quiet and keeps to himself, and he likes to let his play do the talking. But when your play talks the way his has the last couple of weeks, like, you're not going to complain about him sort of shorting you on a couple answers when you put a camera in his face. It is what it is. He's a generational star, and honestly, I'd put him up there for MVP right now because he's done everything for Atlas, and he's a major reason why they're there.
Don't undersell Mark Cockerton. Still haven't stopped that T. Cockerton game.
I'm disrespecting all the Canadians today, Dan. We're burning bridges left and right.
Oh, man.
Shout out to Mark Cockerton. That toe drag a couple weeks ago was nasty. So I wonder where he learned that one.
He also was a beast in the 2-man game against Chaos in this game.
He's a huge reason why Jeff T can sort of get open. He's that pick setter and just sort of that disruptor that allows Jeff T to get his hands free. So, it's not always on the scoreboard, but Mark Cockerton plays a big role, even if he doesn't put up, 2-3 points. He's sort of like, I don't know, Jay Carlson's sort of the guy I go to when I think about that. Like, just that guy that is the do-it-all guy in the offense, sets picks, cuts off ball, does all the little things that you need to do to win. That's what Cockerton's doing for them right now. So, respect to Mr. Cockerton. I'm sorry. Love the toe drag. Love the pick setting. Love Jeff T. Oh, Canada. Let's go.
Oh, Canada. The Atlas, they've been playing some great lacrosse over the past month or so, and they have one of the more welcoming schedules to close out the season, as they'll have the Chrome and Cannons in Week 7, and then the Waterdogs to wrap up the regular season in Week 8, which, like I said before, no win comes easy, but looking at a few of these remaining schedules, especially looking at like the Whip Snakes, it looks like the Atlas could be the favorite there for that top seed, which rewards a bye week, as we're talking about, through these semifinals. So, Dan, something to keep in mind as we go through the next month or so.
Yeah. I was talking about the schedules remaining with another guy today, and we were talking about the Atlas, and he goes, it feels sweepy. I'm like, it does kind of feel a little sweepy, doesn't it? It just looks like a 3-0 there with what the Atlas has left. And like how far they've come. Again, like we aren't that far from the 7% meme of whatever it was, like week 2, when it was like 7% of people thought we'd beat whoever they beat, the Whip Snakes, I think, right? Like, or no, not Redwoods. The Whip Snakes.
Would have been the Redwoods there in week 2.
That's right. When they beat the Redwoods, there was like only 7% of people picked us. And it was like, well, yeah, at that point,
Yeah.
That looked like the smart
Scored
money.
5 goals and
But
gave up
not
like
not
17
anymore.
to the Archers the week before.
Yeah, so I think with the Atlas, coming into the season for me, I had thought, they're in a rebuild, right? They shipped all the egos and all the big stars out of town. Give me the draft picks, let me build my team. Usually when an organization does that, it means like, all right, we'll have a year for these guys to get experience, to learn to play together, to get acclimated to the pro speed and the pro rules and all that. And these guys did it in about 2 weeks, and they didn't need a whole season to do it. They all look like they're ready. They were like, all right, we're good. We're ready to contend now. Put us up there now. And that's what they look like. So, we just had some fun with like the Mark Cochran thing, but the chaos trying to guard that. And I love where Teat plays. I would play Teat above the goal at all times. I would never ever have him at X or behind the goal. Just let him carry the ball from the wing to wherever he wants above the goal, and he's dangerous all the time. But he gets to play those two-man games with guys like Cockerton. And on the backside, you have Eric Law doing Eric Law things around the crease and just Houdiniing defenders who were just like, where did he go? I don't know. He just disappeared. And then you have Jake Carraway just finding skip lanes to go stand in with his hands high and away, ready to just hit it from two, from within two, from different release points. They've got a just lethal shooter there. So, we talk about that. Just that grouping, those 4 guys, is enough to really give a defense problems. And then you also put Brian Costabile on the field. All right, so now your poll is spoken for probably. And then, you also have Dan Baccaro out there. You have Romar Dennis out there. You just have this laundry list of guys who can just run by somebody. We finally saw the Atlas use a razor pick set for Baccaro, where he absolutely just caught his man up and was gone, was able to throw 2 head fakes at goal line extended and bury it as Jake Carraway cheered him on. So, the offense that they're running really, really understands what the guys they have do well and how to put them in a spot to be like, this is his strength. Let's put him in a spot where he's going to be able to really leverage it and really pressure a defense with it. And that's what I think we saw, particularly in that game this week against Chaos. But, something to watch for them is can Cannon come back sometime soon? The nature of his injury is speculated upon, but, it's hard to say whether or not this is going to be Colarusso's job for a while. I think based on how he played against the Chaos, you probably feel okay if it is. 10 saves. He was good in high-pressure situations. He looked comfortable, as part of the clearing game. So you feel okay there. And then, on the defensive end, I think they like what they have in Michael Rexroad. Earlier in the season, this Atlas defense to me looked like a team where the defense had, Tucker Durkin is probably not a true number 1 eraser defender anymore. He's still a very, very good defenseman. He's going to do good things for you on the defensive end. He's been great the last few weeks, but that part of his career is probably where we're getting to the end of it. And then I think Cade Van Raphorst is the best number 2 defenseman in the sport. I think he's as good off the ball as anybody in pro lacrosse. And I kind of put Rexroad in that same group with guys like Durkin and Van Raphorst. So I was always like, they just need this number 1 cover guy to step up and emerge, or they need to go get one. And Rexroad has taken on that role, and he's run with it. He did a great job with Lyle, albeit a hobbled Lyle, but if you hold Lyle to nothing, injured or not, like, that's certainly noteworthy. And he's looked comfortable drawing top matchup. So, I think that's something where you want to make sure he stays confident in that role. Can he handle, that responsibility week in, week out in the PLL, where the top attack matchup every week, you get no break. There is no week where you're like, all right, I'm feeling okay. I'm going to win this matchup. You never feel that way if you're guarding the other team's top attackman in the PLL. So you want Rexroad to keep growing in that role and keep gaining confidence so we can keep doing that. But, the Atlas are another team where these guys have filled and grown into these star players earlier than expected. And because of established guys they already had in key spots, like, again, we hope Kincannon comes back, but Baptiste taking faceoffs, a defensive voice like Durkin, you have John Crawley, who is as smart an offensive player as there is, and you have Eric Law, again, just being an all-pro all the time. Mm-hmm. The formula that they have is right, and Rubior has done a tremendous job. For me right now, he's probably the coach of the year. I'd have a hard time giving it to anybody else. I think Rubior's been that good.
I'd absolutely believe in that. And then you're looking at some of these other young talent, like a guy like Danny Logan did not look very good there in week 1, but then he's bounced back immediately. One of those guys that has quickly, very, very, very quickly settled into his role.
It's funny how that worked with a lot of these rookies. Danny Logan week 1, From then on, he looks great. Terefenko week 1, a little uncomfortable. Now he's great. Jeff Teat, his first game out, little adjustment, and now we're talking about him like he's the MVP. So I think the adjustment group for this rookie class, the adjustment period, has been about a game. The only guy who really didn't need that was TD. But, I would also submit that in TD's first game out, his wings helped him a lot more than they've helped him in recent games. Not that they've done a bad job, but he doesn't needed to rely on them as much. So, that phenomenon, again, it's something I keep meaning to try and, get into the film and try and break down a little bit. But that first game being and then, all right, I feel good, I'm comfortable, I've made a play or two, I can hang with these guys, and they take off, particularly for Logan and Terefenko, is certainly an interesting thing with this rookie group.
Let's move on to the Chaos. They were fresh off back-to-back wins in week 3 and 4 before they dropped their 4th game of the season. In week 5, they're now tied with the Cannons with the worst goal differential in the league, and they hold on to the 7th and final playoff spot by just half a game over the Cannons, and they'll draw the Chrome in week 7, a really good matchup between 2 and 4 teams, each of them trying to separate themselves from that bottom spot, and then they'll have the Archers and the Redwoods in week 8, which look like 2 pivotal games that could decide whether the Chaos continue to play into late August and September. And Austin, you look at the remaining schedule and you look at the performances over the last couple weeks for the Chaos, which was trending up, now takes a dip after this loss. What do you see the Chaos's playoff chances looking like as we come up on this final stretch of the regular season?
Oh, I like the Chaos. I don't know that I like their chances because I don't know what Chaos team I'm going to get from a week-to-week basis. Jack Rollette's injury is huge. Him being absent, and we're not even touching that situation. It's huge. It's their, Jared Newman's sort of been pigeonholed as their number one guy, but Jack Rollette's as important in sort of running and operating that defense as anyone. Do they go to a Dan Coates now? Do they go to, Ian McKay picking up a long pole again for the time being? Do they, give it to Troy Ray, or do they have, somebody like that sort of fill a bigger role? We'll see. This weekend was one thing. I think that over the next couple weekends after the All-Star break, we'll see what's what, and we'll see if the Chaos can sort of bounce back. But their offense has just sort of been, I don't even know the term for it. Like, they're just sort of, they're there one game and they're not the other, and they need to be more consistent. They found that they won that heater in the championship series. Obviously, they got them to the title game. I don't think, they had that similar form, but I don't think they were, firing as similarly as they were when they were on that heater in the playoffs. So Curtis Dixon plays a big part in that. I think Challen Rogers, I think I've talked about this a number of times. Those guys would be huge additions. I think Ryan Smith and Mac O'Keefe have been big pieces. I think, I'd like to see Tanner Cook if he can make it out and actually see him in the lineup to see what he could do. So I think Andy Towers would really like him on inverts, but Blaze is going to have to make like 15-plus saves a game. Probably this team gives up, I believe, some of them, probably the highest shot number in the league, if not top 3. It's just, I don't know. I want to really root for Chaos. They're an anomaly to me right now. I just don't really know what to think about them because they go out and beat the Cannons a couple weeks ago. They lose this game, which is fine. The Atlas are buzzing, so I'm not too surprised. But 9 straight goals, it's a tough look. They just go stagnant at times, and I think that's why, the defense can hold up and Blaze can do whatever he wants. But if you're not scoring consistently, you're dead in this league. So
yeah,
I think that's what it comes down to for Chaos. Short and simple. There, they have to score, or they are going to be in trouble down the stretch.
Dan, you got anything there on the Chaos? They're taking a loss here, 4th loss of the season.
Yeah, I think, Austin said it. I think they really missed that they haven't had Dixon and Rogers yet this season. I think you were hoping that as some of these other guys were able to travel, that Dixon and Rogers wouldn't be too far behind, but we haven't seen them yet. As a comparison to last year, I think we got it a little bit. You remember in the championship series, basically the Chaos looked like they just couldn't figure things out on offense. They were stagnant. The ball didn't move very well. It was just a black hole at times in guys' sticks. And then we had this gigantic shift basically in personnel and philosophy. We're like, all right, Connor Fields to the bench. Austin Stotts to attack. Dane Smith gets a much bigger role in the midfield. We really saw this big shuffle in how we were going to try and use specific personnel, and it sparked that team to this offensive run where all of a sudden they just couldn't be stopped. And we had kind of this offensive shuffle for the Chaos a few weeks ago. You saw a bigger role for a guy like Kyle Jackson, who's been a solid role player for them. And you want to try, you saw Mac O'Keefe a lot more above the net. There were a few times early in the season where it was like Mac O'Keefe's playing behind the goal, and it's like, look, man, he can score from just about anywhere, provided it's above the goal. So you got to put him up there. But you're seeing more of like the pick down motion sets that Penn State runs that he's used to. There's more of that for him. So he's able to get those time and move shots that he's going to can all the time. So they had sort of that shuffle in the offense, and it sparked them a little bit. And I still think they're okay. I still think they can do good things. Josh Byrne's still a great player who can go get you a hat trick a game if you need him to. But yeah, the defensive end, without Rowlett, I think they're hurting. I think Surdyk's a good player. I don't know if he's going to be enough to take over what Rowlett was doing. They could sure use a guy like Kyle Thornton right about now, but
lost him to the Redwoods.
He got signed away by the Redwoods, so savvy move by Nat there. His gain is the Chaos, serious loss right now, because I think he would make a huge difference for them as a guy who can cover pretty well, but is a great defensive communicator and organizer. And when you're trying to figure out how you're going to rearrange your personnel on defense after injuries, that's exactly what you need. So they could sure use him, but like we said, he's not there. So you hope on the defensive end, Blaze needs to keep being Blaze, and then if they play a team, in their win, I believe they beat Redwoods, right? In their win against Redwoods, yes. That was in that stretch where I was like, all right, Redwoods are standing around too much. There's not enough motion away from the ball. If you let the Chaos put pulls like Newman and Surdyk and Ray and guys like that who are aggressive players on you, and you don't move away from the ball to help that ball carrier with that matchup, the Chaos defense will beat the hell out of you and they'll win the game. And that's what happened, I think, a little bit there. So if you have a game where your offense isn't moving, or your feet are in mud, the Chaos defense will look good. They will look like they can handle you. If you have a game where your offense is moving all over the place and hunting lanes and crushing two-man games, you get what the Atlas just did. So, it'll be, some of it will be matchup based for them, and some of it will be how well can we get organized and try and use our personnel creatively. Maybe we go to the player pool again. I think Kyle Hartzell could help somebody right now. But maybe we go to the player pool and look for a guy for a little bit of depth of pull until we get a Rowlett back.
The Chaos dropped to 2-4 on the season. Again, just a half game ahead of the Cannons for that seventh and final playoff spot. And before we move on to what turned into the game of the weekend between the Cannons and the Archers, let's talk about Chrome for a moment, who also sit toward the bottom of the standings at 2-4. And I said that the Atlas have a really favorable schedule here to end the season. The Chrome have probably the most favorable, especially with the position that they are in, which puts them in a good spot to make a push at one of these playoff spots. They'll have the Atlas and the Chaos in week 7, and then the Cannons in week 8. So controlling their own destiny in terms of making the playoffs. They'll have 2 games against teams below them in the standings, and Archers and Austin, limping along, as Dan put it there in his takeaways from today. How can the Chrome string together a win or 2 here over the last 2 weekends to ensure a spot in the playoffs?
Get healthy.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. I don't know. Colin Heacock and Jackson Morrow were really quiet the other day. It's tough to watch that.
Justin Gutterding has been silent the last couple weeks.
Yeah, that's a real surprise. I love Jordan McIntosh, and I always say he's one of the most underrated players in the league, but he shouldn't have to be a guy that scores 4 goals a game for your team to win, or for your team to have even a shot. Like, if he has 4 goals, great, but your other guys have to show up, and then you're going to win that game. Like, if he's the only guy going for you, Jordan's a hell of a player, and he's been playing inverts a lot, which is fantastic. The injuries have kind of helped showcase how great he actually is, but, Morrill and Heacock have to show something, and Gutterding has to be there, and Justin Anderson and Rannigan and all these, Ned Crotty, another guy that's been pretty invisible, Ned Crotty. I think they're kind of missing Jesse King as well. I feel like this team is one of the guys that wasn't able to make it down on the what's the list called, the unavailable to travel list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a big loss. That defense, that offense, the entire team is so. There's my dog. He wants to play with a squeaky toy as soon as I'm. Are you having fun? Hello. Oh no, he was going to make a cameo. Okay, you enjoy that. Sorry. Let me try and technical difficulties. You love them. Can you guys still hear me? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, we're buzzing then. It's just so hard to come back from injuries. I'll try and keep this short with the Chrome, but Dan talked about it in his takeaways. Like, this team doesn't have any All-Star nominations or any what's the word I'm looking for? Nobody's going to the All-Star game for them. So they have a chance to get a week off and, get a little bit healthier. Does that mean that Bernhard or JT Giles Harris or one of these guys is going to be back? We know that Jordan Wolf's done for the season. I don't know how they've obviously shown that it's next man up, but I don't know how you handle all these losses over and over and over again. And Haas now is down, so that puts more on Knizio and Tarasenko. And here he comes again, just stealing the show. Yeah, well done. You're a star. Congratulations. It'll be tough for Chrome. It's not undoable. Like I said before, they could go out and beat anybody, and I wouldn't be surprised. But at this point, the injury starting to mount on key positions all over the field is really hurting them, and it's handcuffing them going down the stretch.
It's looking like those last spots in the playoffs will have the Chaos and Chrome in the conversation, and we'll be able to see them face off in a couple weeks in Week 7 on August 1st. And then the Cannons will also be in that conversation after getting a huge win against the Archers. A loss would have put them a full game back of that 7th spot, so a huge win. 2 huge saves from Nick Morocco in the closing seconds, Dan, to secure this win. After what was a terrible performance on Friday night, they're able to rebound on the back end of their doubleheader and keep those playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, I've said it a few times. I love Brendan Burke's call on that, just yelling Morocco, miraculous. I thought that was a great call. He's been so good in the PLL, but man, that one got me off the couch. So, the Cannons. That's obviously that. Lyle called it in the post game a playoff game for them. It pretty much is a must win. If they lose that game, I think every team with 4 wins basically clinches a playoff spot in that moment, and that cuts down the opportunities for you drastically if you're a 1-win team when that happens. So, a big night. I was happy to see Kevin Reisman get himself up near 60% facing off. I think he had a really, really good night. I know that the Archers didn't dress Bones Kelly, and they went with Connor Gaffney, who's a rookie, and Gaffney did okay, but Reisman's been good for a couple of years now. He's a known quantity to Quirk, so it wasn't surprising to me when they acquired him, and that they've gone to him right away. So we'll see if he can have continued success there. But Morocco had a great night. Obviously, Lyle was really the story of the night there. It was interesting to me. I don't know if you guys saw, but Coach Dave Cottle on Twitter was talking about the game and pointed out the way that basically the Cannons were using Rabel to get Lyle open as much as they could. Rabel was picking for Lyle all night to try and get him some space or tinker with matchups or just try and create pressure. And Coach Cottle, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but kind of to paraphrase him a little bit, thought it might be interesting to try and use somebody else in that role so you could have Rabel hunting for his shot from 2 or elsewhere in dangerous spots in the field. But it worked out for the Cannons. Lyle had a great night. Rabel was able to get some points himself. He had a goal, only took 3 shots, but I think you would say that you could give him an assist or 2 given the way he was playing. Some of those Lyle goals that look unassisted are kind of Rabel assisted. I thought Rafus, again, continues to be great. If not for Jeff T and TD Erlin, I think Rafus is probably running away with Rookie of the Year. He's been so good as a 4th-round pick, such a steal. Basically started drawing a pole as a midfielder, which is not his natural position, but started drawing a pole as early as week 2 because you just couldn't leave him shorted and let him go invert. He's gonna find a guy and he's gonna beat you. He can feed so well. So I think he's been great. I do think you kind of need to mention that for the Cannons to win this game, they needed Will Manny, Marcus Holman, and Tom Schreiber all to miss really good looks in the last minute of the game. And that's not a spot where you want to find yourself. It doesn't happen that way all that often. You replay that 100 times, I think that game's going to OT 99 of them. So, but you know what? They got the one that they needed. Morocco made the save on Holman. He made a good save on Manny, and Schreiber didn't handle that pass late. So Cannons get the win. But I think the Cannons group still could use a little more help on the defensive end. As good as Goodrich is, and man, he's like defensive player of the year level good. He can erase anybody. Elsewhere on the defensive end of the field, I think they're struggling a little bit. Vicetti, to me, it's been a surprising year for Vicetti, because I remember his BU days and his earlier pro days, and he didn't ever play like this penalty-prone kind of guy who was getting, cross-checks to the helmet and plays like that. That wasn't something where you were used to seeing it. For some reason, that's been just, it's emerged as a problem for him this year. So, I'm not sure kind of where that comes from, whether that's, struggle with a matchup or something like that. But, you would hope that gets cleaned up. But I think they need some help in the defensive midfield for sure. I think Tyson Bell's been getting beaten up pretty good these last couple of weeks. I think other teams are looking for him on the field to dodge on him and to key on him. So if that's happening to you, then, you need to either consider more support for him from a sliding point of view, or you need to consider somebody else in that spot. We'll see what the Cannons decide to do, if they decide to go with a Tim Edwards who they added, or you try and play some other guys in two ways. They don't really have a roster built for that, but it's an option for them. I think they can find themselves in the playoffs. I think they've shown with a performance like they can get from Lyle that makes them dangerous to beat anybody, because he's on the roster. So, if they can have a little more success at face-off, Morocco's play stays at a high level, and Lyle is in his groove. He's snapped out of the whatever was bothering him these last few weeks. Then you've got something that's dangerous for sure. So, you don't want to anoint them as like, look out, here come the Cannons. Like, they are still in last place, and they needed things to go right to get a win. But a win is a win, and this league, it's enough. You'll take it every week, and we'll see if they can spin that into some positive momentum and carry it into next week, or into the Colorado week after the All-Star break.
Lyle Thompson, he filled up the stat sheet on Sunday after being held without a point on Friday night. Rookie Stephen Rafis, who's been, as you said before, a steal in the fourth round, has also been playing great lacrosse. He tallied 2 goals and 3 assists in the Sunday win. Shane Jackson had a hat trick, and then Kevin Reisman managed to put together a solid stat line at the face-off spot, winning 16 of 28 against rookie Connor Gaffney after struggling on Friday night. Reisman, the latest name to be added by Coach Quirk at the face-off spot. And then the Archers, for the third straight game, after winning their first 3 games, take a loss, all of them by a single goal. And we were talking before about the Whipsnakes, about how there's no need to panic. You look at this Archers team, Austin, absolutely no need to panic with 3 games left and a plus 22 score differential. I'd imagine the Archers are in a very good spot, even sitting at 3-3.
Yeah, I think it's more just they're in that situation where they need to just get that next win. I think they want to stop the slide as quickly as they can. I don't want to say that they were looking past the Cannons, because as we've said, that every team can beat every team in this league, and the Cannons have been in 3/4 of their games. I think if you look at it realistically, there's probably only 2 games that they should have been out of, and they're probably the Waterdogs game and then the Chaos game. The other ones they lost by a goal or they won. So, yeah, they could very well have been 4-2 at this point. It's just the way it sort of fell for them. But, sorry, 4 and 5-2, I should say. Math guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's, the Archers, I think it's just sort of, they were hot and it sort of came back down to earth. I don't think it's anything where they aren't the team we think they are. They're not pretenders or anything. They didn't just dominate for 3 straight games and then fall off the edge of the earth. It's not that. It's just, they had to play the Whipsnakes. They had to play some tough competition these last couple of weeks. They haven't come out on the right side of the score sheet. So, it is what it is. I'll take part blame for it, because I think I hitched myself onto the Archers wagon a bit and got behind the hype. I got to cheer for my boy Latrell. So,
oh yeah,
that's my guy. I got to get behind him. So I think I might have steered them off that cliff that I was talking about earlier. So I apologize. As a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I tend to ruin the teams I cheer for. So You're welcome, or I'm sorry, either or. Yeah, it's tough. I think the team is what it is. I think we talked about last week, Adam Gittleman sort of regressing back to the norm or sort of the medium of what we expect him to do. You don't really expect him to score 2-pointers and somersaulting and setting up transition and doing all that. But, he's a good goalie still, and Drew Adams is still there, so they have options. That defense is still good. The short sticks are, getting beat a little bit, but so is how this league works. You're not going to get a guy unless it's, Zach Goodrich gets beaten. Even when we talk about putting guys on an island with him, like there's no foolproof plan for putting a shorty on a midfielder. So the offense just needs to score more goals, and score more goals is a broad statement because they're scoring a lot of goals already. But they just need to, find that winning formula. I guess to put it briefly, it's just they got to find that extra goal or that extra, skip pass. And the only other thing I'll say is Grant Ament's an absolute sicko for that pass yesterday. That was just a joke. I tweeted out from the Flash thing about the time as a flat circle because I know Joe loves to talk about that. His pass from the championship series against Chrome last year, pretty much the same thing, backpedaling from the left flank, just throwing it underhand across the field. Except that was with about 2 seconds left on the shot clock, so that was a little crazier, and in overtime. But yeah, he's unbelievable. If we're talking about MVP candidates, he's got to be maybe the favorite, if not top 3 or top 2. He's been unbelievable.
I think he's the favorite. Yeah. I make him the favorite right now.
The Archers will wrap up the season with the Redwoods in Week 7 and then a doubleheader in Week 8 where they'll play the Chaos on Friday night, followed by the Whipsnakes to close out the 2021 regular season. So over those final 2 weeks, we should see some major shuffling of the standings. We'll see who comes out with the that final playoff spot, that number 7 seed, with those 3 teams all vying for it. We'll also see how the top of the league shakes out, but it should be very exciting lacrosse, and we can't wait for it all. Again, we have the All-Star Week this week taking place, and then we'll talk more about the All-Star game on Friday's goal line extended. Then we'll have a week off before Week 7, another week off, and then Week 8, and then we're into the quarterfinals. But Austin, we saw Grant Ament, as we were just talking about him before, him and Blaze Reardon picked their teams over the weekend for the All-Star game this coming Sunday night. Grant went Archers heavy, likewise Reardon went Chaos heavy, but superstars peppered around on both rosters. Looking at it right now, who do you think has the edge in this game?
I mean, neither team has Latrell Harris, so they're both going to lose. But whoever has Tom Schreiber, we'll just pick them. Well, one team has Tom Schreiber, the other has Lyle Thompson, so it'll be a pretty good game. I don't know. I'm just excited to watch it. The old saying, I just hope both teams have fun. I don't think anybody has the edge, but Blaze went defense heavy stacked, and Grant Ament went offense heavy to start his draft. So it'll be a fun one to watch. Sort of those two ideologies when it came to drafting players come together, but. I'm interested to see Kyle Harrison there. Guys are just going to be setting him up left and right to try and get him goals, so that'll be fun to watch.
Similar question for you, Dan.
Like Blaze went defense heavy. It's like, well, doesn't Eamon have like Matt Dunn and Garrett Epple?
Yeah.
All right, so Eamon didn't go defense heavy, and that's who his defense is. I think he's going to be okay.
Yep.
I thought it was fun to watch. I was laughing as Eamon's first picks were all he was like, I want Tom Schreiber and Will Manny and Marcus Holman, please.
Yep.
Like, those are my first picks. Yes, I want my teammates, and we're just gonna, just have the time of our lives out there. But it's all for fun. I kind of wrote about it a little bit, like, the competitiveness and like the competition aspect of it, very much in an all-star game comes second to let's have some fun. It's an exhibition. We'll have a good time. These are incredibly skilled players doing really cool things. So, you hope you see some of that. I thought it was funny that Grant picked Trevor Baptiste ahead of TD.
I did think that was interesting as well.
But I get it's not like you're going to go wrong with either one of those two guys. Yeah. I don't know if I remember in year 1. You remember they tried out some funky face-off rules.
They did
stuff like that in the All-Star game. I don't know if the plan is to bring those back again. If they are, then I want Trevor with the new funky face-off rules, with like the hockey style puck drop and the stuff like that.
I think there was the puck drop to start the second quarter. The third quarter was like goalie just picks it up and goes.
Yeah, goalie just goes. Kind of thing. He needs a face-off guy anyway. So I think it'll be fun. It's a good group. It's a good roster out there. I'm happy for Ficaro to get a chance to go play. He's going to take Will Hawes' spot. We'll see if any other guys shuffle in the course of the week, whether it's guys who picked up injuries this week or are unavailable for other reasons. But we'll see how that goes, and I'm looking forward to just having a fun time with it.
I hope we see infinity K18 goals. That's what we're going for in this game. And as Austin says, hopefully everybody has fun. So we will see how this goes this weekend. Again, All-Star game on Sunday night. We'll talk much more about it on Goal Line Extended on Friday. But week 4 officially in the books. And as I said before, sometime this week we should get an injury report. Hopefully some updates on guys like Jack Concannon, Matt Rambo, Michael Earhart. We saw Will Hollis, as we were talking about before, go down for the Chrome. We haven't gotten any updates on Jesse Bernhardt in a while. Same goes for JT Giles-Harris. So hopefully we'll hear some good news about them and hopefully see them in Week 7 in Colorado. We should also see another wave of transactions during this week before the All-Star weekend. And like I said before, we'll have much more on that come Friday, so make sure to tune into Goal Line Extended. But Austin, Dan, I want to thank you both for joining me today as we reflect on Week 5 in the PLL, and that is going to do it for today's episode of the PLL Flash. I want to thank you all for watching. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe to Lacrosse Flash on YouTube, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future shows, and follow along on Instagram and Twitter at Lacrosse Flash. All the links that you will need, including our website, lacrosseflash.com, will be in the description. But Week 5 in the PLL has now come and gone. We're now on to next weekend's All-Star game before a bye week and then the final 2 weekends of the regular season. We'll be here covering it all on the PLL Flash, and we'll be back, like I said, with Goal Line Extended on Friday to wrap up the week and look ahead to Sunday night's All-Star game. And between now and then, I hope you all have an incredible week. We will talk to you on Friday. Cheers.